Hi everyone, good day. My name is Ashifal Hairan Hairun and I'm here as the presenter of today's journal presentation. Well, our journal entitled The Implementation of Values in the Five Principles or Pancasila in Local Regulation of South Sulawesi Province, number 4 of 2006 on Qur'aniq Education. The authors are Mr. Aminuddin Kasim as the main author, Mr. Supriyadi, Muhammad Akila Al-Kautsar, and me, Ashral Heran Hairun. We are from Tadulako University, Faculty of Law, Indonesia. So in 2016, 3,143 local regulations were revoked, including those with the spirit of Islamic Sharia values, such as the obligation to read the Quran for brother partners, the obligation to read the Quran for civil servants for promotion purposes, etc. And this becomes the philosophical basis of this research on regional regulations on Quranic education in South Sulawesi. Well, of course, the revocation caused pros and cons. Some says that local regulation had no right to regulate Muslim privacy in terms of worship, contradict with laws at higher hierarchy, while on the other hand, the cons argued that Islamic Sharia-based local regulations were part of the aspirations of local communities, so that each region has the right to make local regulations specifically to its regions. Closely related to the controversial issues of the Islamic Sharia-based local regulation, it is interesting to reanalyze the contents of the local regulation of South Sulawesi Province, number 4 of 2006 on Quranic education. This analysis relies on two questions or research questions. The first one is whether or not the regulation of Quranic education in the local regulation of South Sulawesi Province, number 4 of 2006 on Quranic education included the contents of local regulation in terms of implementing local autonomy. And the second one is whether or not the content of the local regulation of South Sulawesi on Quranic education implemented the values of Pancasila as the source of all legal sources of the states. So this is our research method. We use the normative juridical approach. The first approach, we use the primary legal sources and was undertaken with reference to legislation, and the secondary legal ones was undertaken with reference to books, various journals, and doctrines. Nelson theory of Stefan des Rechts, or in English we call it hierarchical structure of law, legal norm validity, and also was developed by Nawiaski, seemed to inspire many Indonesian jurists who pursue legal theory and science. One of them is Maria Farida Indrati Suprapto. She is an expert in the theory and science of legislation. According to her, in the legal norm system of the state of the Republic of Indonesia, Pancasila as the fundamental norm of the state is the highest legal norm, followed by the body of the 1945 Constitution, the People's Consultative Assembly Decree, as well as implementing and autonomous regulations. So here's the first research question that we're going to answer together. As we know that South Sulawesi as an autonomous region has the right to manage their own governmental affairs. The formation of local regulation must contain any materials related to the implementation of local autonomy and co-administration tasks and accommodate specific conditions of regions and or further elaboration of the higher legislation. As we know that the education sector is one of the contents of local regulations affairs in terms of implementing local autonomy, and also it becomes one of the mandatory government affairs regarding basic services. Specifically for the provincial government, in here it's South Sulawesi, one of the authorities in the education sector is to establish a curriculum for local content in secondary education and also in special education, and also to fulfill the interests of the local community, also an obligation and a manifestation form of regulating and managing governmental affairs for an autonomous regions. There are two key points here. First is education as one of the contents of local regulation in terms of implementing local autonomy, and second is to fulfill the interests of the local community. Let's take a look at the number of religious adherents in South Sulawesi. Based on the chart, we can conclude that Islam is the majority. Means through the local regulation on Quranic education, the government is trying to fulfill the interests of the local community. On top of that, this regulation is used as a legal basis on religious education. So, the question again, did the regulation of Quranic education include the contents of local regulation in terms of implementing local autonomy? Yes. So here's how a legislation or regulation can be considered to reflect the principles of Pancasila. There are few parameters that should be met. The first one is the legislation formed reflects the belief in the Almighty God as the first principle of Pancasila if it provides protection and respect for everyone to have faith and devotion to the Almighty God in accordance with their respective religions and beliefs in a civilized manner. The second parameter is it protects everyone to respect religious choices and beliefs each other as well as the freedom to practice worship in accordance with their respective religions and beliefs. Third, it can foster a divine spirit of compassion and tolerance in both intra and interfaith life without violence and the imposition of religious beliefs on others. The fourth is it can foster and develop relationships and cooperation among adherents of different religions and beliefs so as to foster harmony in life. And fifth, it can create and promote religious morality as the foundation of public ethics by preserving integrity in the cleanliness of mind, words, and deeds. And next principle, just and civilized of humanity. The first parameter that shall be met is it recognizes the equality of status, rights, and obligations among human beings. It upholds the values of humanity by respecting the basic human rights as individuals, citizens, and part of collectiveness. It can develop a sense of humanity and humanist behavior towards fellow human beings and other creatures, and habit to do humanitarian activities. Fourth, it provides protection for everyone in struggling for truth and justice for the sake of human dignity. And the last one is it enhances awareness that the Indonesian nation is a part of the whole of humanity, encouraging the development of honorable attitude to respect and cooperate with other nations. So, the local regulation of South Sulawesi Province, number 4 of 2006 on Quranic education is more concerned with this previous principle that I've mentioned earlier, which are belief in the Almighty God and of just and civilized humanity. Materials in Quranic are only targeted specifically to Muslim students. We can see it by Article 4 in the regulation. It says that the targets of Quranic education are Muslim students in all lines and levels of education. So it is a moral violation or even a law violation if educators in schools impose Quranic education on non-Muslim students. Based on Pancasila, the state of the Republic of Indonesia shall realize a life order in which each citizen has moral and ethical values, as well as has faith, a noble character, and also devotion to the Almighty God. This expectation is not only sufficient to be met by family or household, but also by parties in all types and levels of formal and non-formal educational institutions. Therefore, Quranic education provided to the predominantly Muslim students in South Sulawesi Province basically aims to increase faith and devotion as well as a noble character of Muslim students so that they will in the future have a spiritual capital to give contributions to the nation state building. It means that the regulation has met the parameter of the first principle, which is belief in the Almighty God. The next question is, does the regulation reflect the principles of humanity as the second principle of Pancasila? Well, one of the philosophical considerations that underlies this regulation is that the Quranic education is part of human rights. As we know that every human being has the right over protection to develop personality, obtain education, educate himself, and improve his quality of life to be human beings who have faith and devotion to the Almighty God, has responsibility, a noble character, happiness, and also prosperity. So here we come to the conclusion. The local regulation of South Sulawesi Province, number 4 of 2006 on Qur'aniq Education, does not contradict the higher legislation. It also includes the contents of local regulation in terms of implementing local autonomy, and it also does not contradict the values in Pancasila, especially the principles of the belief in the Almighty God and of the just and civilized humanity. The goal of Qur'anic education in the local regulation number 4 of 2006 to develop the potential of students so that they can be human beings with faith and devotion to the Almighty God and noble character can lead to a capital of human resources that can be expected to contribute to the development of the nation and state. That's all from me. Thank you very much.